It looks like we are good to go. Thank you all so much for joining us today. You're here for the Influencer Marketing and Affiliate Tracking Strategies Beyond the Click. All of the participants here today are part of the PMA Industry Advancement Council, and this was a conversation that they just started having a couple of months ago, and the conversation was so good, they kind of stopped midway, and it was like, hey, this should actually be a webinar. We're throwing out so much important stuff. So they put together this webinar. I'm going to have everybody in the room introduce themselves, but first of all, I'm going to ask those of you who are watching us over on LinkedIn, if you could also introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and what you're looking to get out of the webinar today. So are you on the influencer side and you're looking for new information about ways that you can work with brands? Are you on the brand or agency side who is looking for new ways to work with the influencers? So either way, we'd love to just get a feel for what you're doing out there. And then also, if you have any questions for our panelists throughout the presentation today, you can drop them in that LinkedIn Live comment section, and we will try to get to as many of those as we can. As I mentioned, this is the Industry Advancement Council of the PMA, but we also in the last week have just launched our brand new Influencer and Creator Council. So it's really good timing for everybody who is watching today. If this impacts you, if you're a PMA member, let me know if you want to get onto that new Influencer and Creator Council, because they're just starting out with crafting their mission statement and everything. And they're going to be a lot of fun stuff that they're going to be doing this year. So I'm Tricia Meyer, the Executive Director of the Performance Marketing Association, and also a publisher and little time creator on the side. And I will have all of our panelists introduce themselves, starting with Cass.
Hey everyone, I'm Cassandra Scarbeck. I am the VP of Brand Partnerships here at InfluenceLogic, where we help brands scale growth through influencer programs, predominantly on YouTube, as well as other social media platforms. But our big differentiator is that we are 100% performance-based. So this is definitely a topic that is very important for us in particular.
Terrific. Amy.
Hi, I'm Annie Mies. I'm the principal of Simpl-eCommerce, a boutique affiliate marketing agency specializing in emerging brands.
Joey.
I'm Joey Asleson. I'm the Director of Client Partnerships at Team Bespoke, and we're a performance marketing agency specializing in affiliate, partnerships, and influencer marketing. And we also have a focus on emerging brands.
Jake.
Hey, Jake Fuller here, CEO at JEBCommerce, another affiliate marketing agency here on the call. I think this panel's stock today with agency representation. So we're a full service agency that specializes in affiliate marketing. That's always been our niche, and excited to talk about influencer and affiliate and how they go together.
And Laura.
Hey, I'm Laura Goodsell, the owner of Goodsell Marketing and Industry Vet. I have a small agency that manages affiliate programs as well as influencer for our clients.
Right. Thank you all so much. And also I want to thank, instead of having a sponsor for this particular webinar, I want to thank our PMA industry champions who are our top level sponsors for the PMA. And that is Partner-Centric, Brand Verity, AWIN, Link Connector, CJ, Partner Eyes, Rakuten Advertising, Affiliate Summit, XP Affiliate, Davis and Gilbert, Everflow, and Tenerity. Thank you all for your ongoing support of the PMA that allow us to be able to put out great free content to the entire industry like this one. So let's just jump into the topic with just kind of at the base level, how are influencers being introduced to affiliate marketing? Do you want to take that one, Cass?
Absolutely. So really it's a two-way street. There's a push and a pull for influencers for the affiliate space. First, it's really brands and agency teams, like a lot of the people on this call today, that are reaching out directly to influencers and looking to recruit them to promote different brands and their products. So oftentimes that brand will have their own internal influencer team. Sometimes they're working with an agency. Most of the time they're working with creators on more of a managed spend or an upfront fee with that collaboration. What's less usual or less typical are performance-based influencer opportunities, but I know that is a hugely growing area in our industry and something that everybody is interested in. So here at InfluenceLogic, really what we do is focus on those relationships with creators. We have over we have thousands of creators that we work with in any given month to promote the brands that we are working with. And so what makes us really different is that we are working on a 100% performance basis. So using any kind of audience data that we need to identify those creators is super important, and really lining up that brand with the audience is what we focus on. And we will do that either on a flat spend basis for that creator, or we will also work with them if they're willing to work on a performance basis. So it kind of runs the gamut there. The other part of the street is the opposite, where influencers are coming to brands and they are looking for opportunities. So often they're discovering those opportunities through networks like Everflow, Awin, CJ, things like that, where they're going to their networks and they're looking for those opportunities. And so there's a lot of interest that are, the space is continuing to bring in through those platforms. And Joanne, I know you have some other platforms that you work with directly at Team Bespoke, if you want to share a little bit more about those.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few other platforms. So in addition to kind of the more traditional affiliate platforms that Cass just mentioned, there has been an emerging kind of trend of more influencer-specific networks that function very similarly to how we that are more familiar with the affiliate channel look at those the major networks such as the CJs, Recton, etc. So those are the Mies, the LTKs, the Aspires, the Sprout, which is formerly Tagger, just to name a few. There are so many of them out there right now, but definitely want to shine a light on those, as they are not necessarily the same as an affiliate network and carry a lot of different functionalities that are more specifically tailored to influencer or ambassador programs. And so they're able to manage large and small scale influencer programs that allow for payment processing as well, and tracking very similar to those networks, but also have those added benefits of social listening, tracking via social, gifting, and a few other services like that. So they have a much more specific kind of focus on those creator type partnerships. So just want to add those in there too.
So this is a little bit different than what we think of like traditional affiliate program influencer. Jake, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's kind of bridging the gap here. There's obviously, as agencies who work with a lot of different brands, and you're going to kind of run the gambit on when they come to us. Do they have an influencer team in-house? Do they not? So some brands will have a full team that's in-house that handles outreach to content creators. They're using Aspire or Grin, or they're using some kind of CRM type platform that's specifically built for their influencer efforts. Then you have brands who come in and say, hey, affiliate marketing is fantastic. Let's bring in influencers, and they don't have a team to do that. So typically speaking, brands will typically look across, the CJs, the AWINs, and the typical networks and see what technologies they have available and try to figure out how do we incorporate influencer as part of the category that we're going to focus on to grow this channel. And in doing that, they kind of lean on either the network or their agency partner to kind of develop that strategy. And I know we have these questions coming up, but that's where you start getting in deeper on into attribution. How do we start rewarding these? How do we want to reach out to these influencers? And going back to question one, like Joey had said, I think there's more to note there. We typically work with brands like a Mavely or an LTK where we can do that through a CJ network, for example, or a major affiliate network. But a lot of the networks, if you look over the past 5 years, there have been quite a bit of investment in whether it's through acquisition or upgrading their technologies to specifically hone in on this influencer category and these content creators. So most of these networks now have an upgraded tool set, or through acquisition, a new tool set to help agencies and brands go out and find these content creators, recruit them, reach out with different payment models to maybe entice them to come and promote that brand. And so there's still a lot of educational gap on where influencer fits from a performance marketing standpoint. And you have brands who either think all these content creators will work on commission only because that's what affiliate is, and those that actually understand there is the different hybrid models on how we have to structure that outreach and those partnerships.
Anyone want to add anything on that question before we move on? All right. So when we talk traditional affiliate, we're talking about kind of traditional click tracking, which has caused some of the big issues that have come up in the media lately with influencers and affiliate marketing. Why is the traditional click tracking problematic for influencers who are working with affiliate?
I can start there. So really, the first piece of this that is problematic is just understanding consumer behavior and how a viewer is going to engage with content that they see, whether it's on a TV, on their mobile device, or on a computer. And understanding that it is very challenging to get someone to actually click an affiliate link before they go and visit a website. So I have a couple interesting stats here for you all that you might be surprised about, but 50% of people viewing content on YouTube are actually watching from a TV, which is so fascinating. And that's definitely growing more and more as people are adopting, streaming services and things like that. It takes very intentional effort for someone to watch an integrated ad on YouTube and then actually go and look for the description and click a link so that that conversion is tracked back to that influencer. What's more realistic and what's more common, and I would love actually a show of hands or thumbs up on this question, is how many of you have actually watched an influencer talk and then you just go directly to Google and you start searching in that brand, or you're on the road and you hear something, or maybe you're listening on your phone, but you don't have time in the moment to actually go and click, but you want to go check out that product. So you're just bypassing clicks altogether. So Tricia, I don't know if people are able to respond to kind of give us a thumbs up there if they've actually bypassed links, but it's extremely common behavior. And then if you go into other platforms like TikTok and Instagram, and an influencer has a link in their bio, to get to that link in the bio, it takes even more effort to find that link and click it. So really, the consumer just isn't, they don't care about affiliate tracking. They don't even necessarily think about affiliate tracking. They just want to go and check out the product. So that consumer behavior is really a big piece of the problem when it comes to, attribution. And then another big source, and this again is part of consumer behavior, is just more and more people are using ad blockers. They don't want to be tracked. And so they're not accepting cookies. And, obviously if we are a click-based conversion model, that's definitely problematic. So that is a big part of the problem. The other piece is really just understanding how affiliate programs are set up. And so the majority of programs historically have been set up so that the last affiliate link clicked will be credited for that conversion, right? And so we know that's the majority of the way programs are working. But for brands that are really, really focusing and have placed high value on influencer programs, it's really imperative that they or their agencies understand the full capabilities within their tracking platform to be able to align their goals for their growth with how they want to reward and credit influencers as well as any other partner in that click path. So it's a big piece. And for the influencer, obviously they lose when they're not getting those conversions if they're receiving a commission for any of those conversions, or if they're working on an upfront fee, they can even lose out because their effect may be deemed not successful if they're not really seeing the full value of what they bring to the table. So they may miss out on future opportunities. And for the brands or the agency that are developing that growth strategy, if they can't really go back and prove like, hey, we know that this is happening, we know that we are having a lot of success driving organic traffic to a website, but they don't have a measurement tool to put that in place, budgets may not be allocated in the future for those efforts, or they may shift budget to a different channel. So it's really, really important for brands to understand the full scope of where all their traffic is coming from. And the last click method doesn't always tell that story.
And when we're talking about attribution kind of in general, this is, one of the reasons that I hope that this video ends up being spread far and wide to the influencers and the brands, because the things that we're talking about here today, the resources that we're putting out there, with attribution, the PMA has done a lot in the white papers and webinars to explain what is attribution. And even when we try to say, oh, well, there's first and there's last. Well, there's first and there's last and there's split and there's jump and there's all these different things in the middle that can be used. But if you don't educate yourself as an influencer and as a brand to understand all those different types of attribution, you're kind of missing out on the revenue, and you're missing out on the big picture.
To build on that,
Absolutely.
Tricia, as many people on this call, when you're building out your influencer program or your overall marketing strategy, you need to set your expectations with the client as well as the influencer. Because if you're gifting or you're paid, you can even attribute it to old school media and billboards on a highway. You don't, you get eyeballs on it, but they're not necessarily going to track to a sale based on that billboard. And it goes back to the rule of 7, how many people see the brand name before they activate. And you got to fill the consumer funnel at every step of the journey. So if we're setting expectations at the beginning of the campaign, rather than trying to backfill with performance, and let them know that the performance likely isn't going to be strong, but let's look at it over a 6-month period, working with these, and then determining brand ambassadors, people you want to bring into the brand family and continue to leverage and cultivate that relationship ongoing. You will have a much stronger program going forward, but it does take investment.
And how does retargeting fit in with that, Annie, in terms of once people have already been to the website?
There's a lot of different tools that brands can put, whether they have site retargeting, social retargeting, email retargeting. Once you get the eyeballs to your website, it's up to the brand and the technology they've got in place to reach those consumers.
Well, these are problems, obviously, but there are innovations. So all is not lost, everyone. Joey, kind of set us up for some of the things we're going to talk about through the rest of this webinar in terms of what you think some of the biggest innovations are that both sides should be looking at.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of innovations. Some of them are very common and I think have been, widely available to a lot of merchants and a lot of influencers and creators. And then there's a few that are more outside of the box, but still just as effective. And so I think there's a lack of awareness around all of the different tools that are out there. And I think it's just become very apparent in our space of a lack of understanding on how things work and then the pieces that are able to combat. So while we have talked about all of the issues that do come into play with last click attribution, it is still probably, and my fellow panelists, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's still probably the most common way these programs are set up, and it probably will be for the coming months unless something drastically changes. And so I think in an effort to just tackle the current lay of the land, it's great to talk about some of these solutions, which I'm excited to do with everyone here. So a couple of those are, one, coupon code tracking, focusing more on that code redemption versus any clicks, anything like that. Landing pages, always a great option. Again, there's upsides and downsides to all of these, so we'll dive into them as we chat through them, in greater detail after this. And then survey-based attribution, and then even some additional lesser known ones, which we'll touch on briefly. But there are a lot of great tools out there, and I think, the goal of this is to really build awareness around all of those. So excited to kind of continue to dive into them. I saw a question
Awesome
here too.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, let's get you in here a little. Let's talk about coupon tracking, because when I think about kind of like the start of the innovation, it seems like coupon tracking was one of the first things we saw, and maybe gets talked about the most. So talk a little bit about what is coupon tracking and how does it work for influencers?
With what we've seen with clients, it's an easy way to track any incoming conversions. that a coupon code can be applied to the order and tracked back to the individual influencer or ambassador that passed it on to their followers. The coupon doesn't have to necessarily be for a percentage off or a dollar off on the offer. It could be something that gets a free gift. It could be something that gets free shipping for the consumer. But we do see that, you know, you have to give them a reason to go ahead and input that coupon so that it tracks back. There's a lot of great things about it. It's easy to pass on to the influencers, easy to generate in, you know, the shopping cart. But you know, it also can be used in place of a network or a location where you can't use link tracking. So it's you know, kind of an easier method. Also, you can customize the coupon code so it's easy to remember. I listened to a podcast about true crime, and their code is always with murder in the code, and I can never forget that.
I might need to know that podcast. I have a road trip to Chicago this weekend and already told my husband we need some podcasts. So I might have to follow up with you after about that. So yeah, but like you mentioned, so podcasts and TikTok videos and reels and all of those kind of things just makes it easy to just flash that up on the screen during the video or to mention it. But there are some disadvantages, right? Does anyone want to talk about what some of the disadvantages of using the coupon tracking might be?
I think the biggest one is that they're so easy to leak. We see them turn up on a lot of coupon sites and on other types of media, and that's a real problem, I think, you know, that affects the industry.
So for people who don't understand what the coupon leaking means, what does that mean?
Yeah, I can chime in on that. So I guess it's kind of tough to like call it a leak and that it is already like a widely available code, but I would say it would be more in line with a code potentially going quote unquote viral or being spread or utilized in places that it shouldn't be. So you may see a code that is for a steeper discount, as influencer codes are oftentimes at a steeper discount than what is widely available on the web. Some may consider it best of web. It could be picked up on a deal or coupon site, you know, and that causes a lot of issues. There's user-generated, you know, content that can appear there. There's also now in the wild, wild world of Reddit, subthreads for all of these major brands that rarely offer discounts, which is where I've also seen, you know, a lot of spillover or virality coming from some of these discount codes. And you know, with the coupon sites, it's very easy to sometimes have that communication. With Reddit, it's a whole other, you know, animal. So there's a lot of, you know, vulnerability in terms of offering this. While there are methods to kind of combat this by refreshing the codes every once in a while, then you also kind of run into the issue of taking away why that code was special in the first place. So while there are a lot of great things to be done, this is a quick and easy way that a lot of people have the capability of. So I don't want to necessarily knock this as something that you would forego in an effort to go back to like link tracking. Does come with some more pitfalls to some of the other solutions that we will talk about as well.
So that's kind of the easiest. You can hit the
Yes.
biggest number of influencers. It's the easiest to set up for the brands. Let's take it to the kind of the next level up that you had mentioned, Joey, and that's landing page tracking. So what is landing page tracking and how does it even work for the influencers? Take it, Joey?
Yeah, sure. I can take this one too. So landing page tracking is creating a landing page that is specifically designed for that creator. That is oftentimes what one would consider maybe a ghost page, if I'm using the correct terminology that is widely used. But there are a variety of names, but it wouldn't necessarily be linkable directly from that website. It would only be available from a unique URL that that creator has access to. So that creator is given a unique URL, that will drive their customer or that potential customer to a unique version of the site that is tagged with the discount that is exclusive to that creator. So that could look like landing on a specific page that is customized to them. Maybe it has their picture on it, or maybe it triggers a line drive on site that is only available through there, or a curated landing page of a variety of products. There's actually a lot of really fun ways that you can do this that strengthens the partnership between the brand and the creator. I've seen a lot of retailers go and create custom creator collections with these. So not only does it combat some of the tracking issues, but it also creates kind of a fun experience. So I really like these. But again, with the URL, one of the pitfalls with this is, again, the click. You have that link, you got to go to the bio again, you got to kind of go through these hoops once more. That being said, you are able to incentivize a little bit more and have a bit more fun with it. Come check out my exclusive collection on xyz.com. So there are a few other benefits to it in that sense, but you do still run into those pitfalls. But again, it's another great way to offer a discount to get better tracking, to potentially increase your conversion rate as a creator, avoid potentially having to always be reevaluating, editing your content for coupon code spillover. So it's a great solution. And also now, coming into the space, and this is something that a lot of influencers are probably aware of. I know a lot of agencies are now aware of it, and a lot of brands will be too very soon, as there is a lot of new partners and companies in the space that are actually taking a heavy focus on partnering with brands to actually make this a much easier solution to create. Before, it was a very big burden to have a request put in, to have a new a new page created, but there are partners now that are coming to kind of put an ease of use on this right now. So I'm not going to necessarily dive into all those right now, but it's kind of an exciting and a more innovative piece that I've seen emerge a lot over the last couple of months.
Any other comments or experiences that you've had with the landing pages for influencers? Any of the rest of you? Just out of curiosity, I'm asking the panelists, and then I'm also, for those of you who are watching a webinar, going back to coupons, raise your hand if you have done the coupon tracking for an influencer before. And hopefully those of you, I have, as a publisher, had the coupon tracking done for me. How many of you have done the landing page tracking for an influencer before? All right, same. And that's something I've had as a publisher. So now let's take this up to the next level, which is something that I have not achieved as a publisher, creator, or influencer yet, because you definitely have to be a little bit bigger in order to have this done. Let's talk about the survey-based attribution. What is it and how can that work? I think, Cass, this is something that you've done a lot of work with.
Yeah, definitely. So I love talking about this topic because it's so helpful, not just if you're running an influencer program, but just brands and agencies as a whole, understanding where their organic traffic is coming from. And so a survey-based attribution setup is really a way for brands to ask a customer directly, how did you hear about us? And that's usually done at the point of purchase. Sometimes it's before you check out, sometimes it's right after. But many of us in the industry will call it the HDYHAU. And instead of just relying on a click to understand where your traffic is coming from, this can give a brand insight into the full scope of where people are coming from. And so it includes touch points like, if you have a YouTube program, if you have TikTok and Instagram, that survey might also say, some kind of connected TV spot. It could have a whole host of different marketing channels, an email, a billboard, things like that. But really, the survey is put in place in the customer flow so that they can tell the brand directly where they heard about the product or service. And so it's really, really helpful, really valuable, and super insightful when you start running these surveys to see, you might totally change your mind on how you're allocating your budget when you start seeing where traffic's really coming in. And so a couple things on this survey, just as at a high level. Usually you'll have a channel level selection. So again, it's YouTube, billboard, email, what have you. If it's an influencer channel like YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, the next level would be creator level identification. So you could actually say, I heard about this from Joey. And then the brand's going to know not only did an influencer drive the traffic, but which influencer drove that. And so if they're working with that partner, they're going to be like, great, we want to do more with Joey. We want more content coming from him because it's converting. We can also see, what that lifetime value of that customer is because we know they came in from him. Let's keep moving. So super valuable tool.
So I actually saw one of these in the wild for the first time last week, and now I can't remember who the merchant was, but it hit me as soon as I saw it that that's what this was, because it was something that I had bought that I think was a smaller brand. I so wish I could think now. And it was like maybe right after I made the purchase or on the checkout page, and it was a "How did you hear about us?" And the drop down had, it was maybe 10 options, and like 5 of them were kind of traditional, and said like, email or website or something. And then there were 5 influencer channels that were listed on there. And when I saw those influencer channels that were listed, I thought, aha, I know what this is. Now I know why they want this.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to kind of to see that out in the wild, because I don't think that I've ever come across that anymore. And I wish I could remember now if it was actually an influencer that had convinced me to buy the product or not, or whether it was just a coincidence. I have to go back and look at all this stuff. A little too much online shopping to remember which one it was. But so what are the advantages and disadvantages of using this method? Obviously, there are a lot.
Yeah. So advantage wise for brands, at the end of the day, it's designed to help them make better data-driven decisions about future investment in their efforts and in their money. So, when you are able to see a full view and not just, someone, came in from search, Google search, all of us are, when we're searching for a brand, we're probably not remembering the vanity URL that an influencer shared. They're probably just typing in brand A, going through Google search. So it definitely helps brands see a fuller picture. And actually, what's super interesting is the brands that we're working with see anywhere from a 25 to 50% lift, and as high as, honestly, I'm not exaggerating, 90% lift in conversions that are attributed to the influencer channel when they're running these HDYHAU surveys. And if you were to go and look at the top 10 influencer programs on YouTube right now, 8 of those top 10 are using HDYHAU surveys. So this inevitably is going to lead to a massive engine of influencers driving content for those brands on a monthly basis. And they're going to create thousands of views for their products. It's going to lead to tons and tons of traffic. And over time, that is all going to, as Annie was mentioning, you're going to be able to remarket to that person. So if you are not investing in your influencer program, or you're making decisions thinking that your influencer program isn't running as well as you thought, and you start to kind of dial down those investments, your organic traffic is inevitably going to be impacted. So, and you lose out on all those opportunities to remarket. So that's the benefit to the brand. For the influencer, and this goes back to something I was mentioning earlier, we want those influencers to get recognition for what they're doing and all of their good efforts. We want the channel managers for those influencer programs to be recognized for their strategy and their expertise. And so when we are able to identify that, it allows the creators to win because they're either earning commission on those sales, and that helps everyone. Or we're able to rebuy with those creators if, we're seeing a lot of success with them. So, that develops a long-term sustainable partnership that's always valuable for brands. We don't like to just see these one-off campaigns where, you talk about a brand one time and then you move on to another brand. Audiences really love influencers that are truly authentic about the brands that they're talking about. And so if they're consistently talking about a brand over time, that really tells the customer that they believe in that brand. And so And I think Annie was also talking about the rule of sevens. You know, you need to sometimes be exposed to a brand multiple times before you're ready to make that purchasing decision. So you really do want to keep working with these creators and not just on a one-off basis. So those are some of the wins. And then in terms of challenges, I'll just name a couple. First of all, bandwidth is a huge thing with brands. Oftentimes you just don't have the time, or it's hard to get into the dev queue to really build that technology out. If there's a survey in place, it's usually not a lot of work to add influencer and to add creator level selection options. But if you don't have it implemented, that can definitely be a hurdle. And I will say at the end, I can share one brand in particular that is able to help solve that problem. But the bandwidth is usually the biggest problem. And then in addition to that, consumer behavior, people don't always accurately select the channel or the influencer that they heard from. Sometimes they're just going to pick the first thing in the survey. They're lazy. They're just going to get through it. And other times, you know, they really know that their influencer is, you know, being compensated for their efforts. And so they want to support that influencer, especially if they're highly engaged with them. And so, you know, they need to go in and click that influencer. But the other piece that's challenging is just understanding how to set up that survey in a way that is going to not favor the first person in the list. So understanding how you can do things like randomization of the channels, the order that they're shown, the order that the influencers are shown. We never recommend just doing an alphabetical listing. It doesn't make any sense. So the brands that have tested and randomized have seen the most beneficial results for sure.
So as I asked before, those of you on the webinar, those of you who are watching the webinar, how many of you have done this type of survey with an influencer? Anyone besides Cass so far? All right, so this one is a harder one, but we will talk about some tools. So one other thing, just as the Industry Advancement Council was talking, we were trying to think of other lesser known options that are worth considering. Those of you who are watching, I would love to know if there are other options that you are using. Drop those into the chat because we would like to know as part of this group, but also just for general sharing and anything that we do coming up. Are there any other types of lesser used options that you might want to consider, even if none of you personally are doing them, if just other things that you've heard of?
I've seen on some of the advertisers homepage, like a place to enter into a landing page by indicating who referred you. I think it's commonly used in podcasting. It'll say like, click on the mic and let us know. So that might be something that we could adapt well into this arena.
Interesting.
What about phone number tracking? I feel like this is something that we heard about a lot in affiliate marketing a long time ago, but is that still happening?
I don't have a ton of expertise on the phone tracking, but we actually do have quite a few brands that are working with InfluenceLogic that have more of a longer lead funnel. And so oftentimes those are brands that, you know, really benefit from having a conversation to drive that conversion. And so we are providing unique phone numbers per influencer so that if that customer calls in using their phone number, we know that it came from that particular influencer. So the brand has to have that capability. Usually if the brand has a phone number on their website, that's an indicator they can probably do it. And they have different technologies for how to spin that up and track. But yeah, it's definitely being more and more leveraged through the influencer platform. But I think typically still people are by and large going and either going through Google search or, you know, clicking a link in favor of the phone.
We had a question that came in from the audience that I would like to ask you to consider. Given the uphill journey and path to purchase for influencers, do you think this classification should be viewed more under paid media rather than affiliate? Or does it boil down to managing expectations with clients that if you want to work with influencers through the affiliate channel, then they'll have to pay for it?
I love this question. I think both. So we've talked a lot, and Cass, you've mentioned it. Everybody's talked about consumer behavior being one of those pitfalls that, regardless of how you're tracking or how you're attributing conversions through different marketing channels, there's always going to be gray area. That gray area is typically consumer behavior. And I think the big gap is, if we just back up a bit, why are influencers attractive to a brand? They create authenticity, they create awareness for new audiences or core demographic audiences that you're trying to reach that you don't already have as a brand. But when we talk about influencers in regard to affiliate, there's almost a mental shift, I feel like, with a lot of brands who will assume, now that we're bucketing that into the performance space, that it should be strictly a performance-based outcome. But influencers are more top funnel. So if you look at any other top funnel metrics that they're putting paid media into, they don't have the mindset that they're going to get that immediate return from a conversion and be able to track that without seeing other touch points along that funnel. And so the same thing is true with influencer. I do think there's times when it's flat out expectations. Look, there are scalable opportunities, especially if you leverage technology the right way and you can prove that to your content creators that, hey, we're on top of the ball here. We know what kind of attribution settings we're looking at. We've got, the capabilities of giving you custom landing pages, custom coupon codes, whatever it might be, to kind of entice them to work with you on that performance basis. That might exist. But I do think that you have to consider, if you want to scale that side of the house, there's got to be some aspect of paid budget. And I think that's an argument that all of us have been in the past, or that discussion with brands when they come to the affiliate space and they go, let's go after content creators. And you ask the next question, what budget are you allocating for this? And they say, well, nothing. It's performance based. I have zero budget. You're automatically going to have pitfalls and roadblocks along the way there. So I think that's a good question. And overall, yes, I do think there's a mix of performance aspect versus expectation and even considering it paid media.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jake, because it's sort of the push and pull of influencers. We have a beauty client and we get a ton of organic outreach from influencers just wanting to work with us. But then we have other brands where we're out looking for influencers. And there's, as Joey mentioned, a bunch of different influencer platforms that can integrate into the affiliate model. So it's asking the brand, okay, you want to work with influencers. Yes, how much budget do you have? But why do you want to work with influencers? Are you trying to get the brand out there? Are you looking for content creation that you can repurpose? Are you looking for brand awareness, or are you looking for sales? Or are you looking for building that ambassador program where you can have that authentic, ongoing voice over and over? So when you have a new product launch, you have your key go-to people. So it's sort of teaching the brands how to work with these influencers respectfully and over, and what they're going to get out of it for the different reasons.
We've got some industry vets weighing in on LinkedIn right now. Mike Curry, nice to see you. Invoca, mentioning Invoca, that's exactly one of the companies that I was thinking about in terms of that phone tracking. Also, Gio's out there watching and made a good point that he started seeing some brands that are taking display budget and moving it over to influencer marketing. And then one of our board members here asking a question of, if the influencer is having unique coupon codes, does it make them coupon affiliates?
No, I think the coupon code with the creators is much more of a tracking methodology, more so than like a discount and offering a conversion upper for them on that front. With that, I mean, I think with like the coupon affiliate and all of this, and like even with that like initial question, I think there's an issue with like trying to like shove influencers and creator marketing into a box. like I feel like trying to shove them into like an affiliate box or a paid media box is just like not the way to go. Like also a lot of organizations aren't even going to look at creators in the bounds of affiliate or paid media. They're going to look at them in the bounds of like brand partnerships or their brand awareness or brand building. So it's going to be in like an entirely different kind of like section or initiative. It's the same thing with like PR. It's like returns maybe necessarily aren't always expected. So when I work with like my clients and I treat things differently, there's going to be like our performance-based influencers, and those performance-based influencers are oftentimes going to be running through like an organic, I joined my brand to shop my, I'm letting things run as is. I have an optimized commission rate and I'm letting things go. But the second that we start to try to curate and control messaging, and we start to offer codes, and we start to try and have, seating, and we're saying XYZ needs to be done, then it becomes its own channel, in my opinion. It's got its own, benchmarks, it has its own strategies, and it has everything is unique in and of itself. And I break out influencers as separate from the rest of my program for my clients due to the fact that we're not going to see the same ROI and we can't have the same expectations of that. So like I'll let it flow into affiliate as long as it's running via, one of these sub networks through my network. But the second that I start to take like a focused strategy with it, then it's an influencer channel, and it's not paid media and it's not like affiliate, or at least that's the way that I tee it up. And that does level set expectations and change the way it works, at least in my opinion. So I don't know if anybody else has a thought on that.
It is
Yeah,
difficult. And Janine pointed out, and also we've got Sean out there also saying the same thing, that we've got this kind of bleed over. And I think it's intentional in the industry, because we used to say like, oh, these were the top of funnel types of affiliates, these are the middle, these were the bottom funnel affiliates, and everybody's realizing they have to be a little bit of each. The influencers are at the top, but they also want to close the sale, so they want a coupon so someone doesn't go somewhere else. The coupon sites also want to be introducing their audiences to the deals as that top of funnel, and they're also trying to close the deals. So there is kind of all of this the kind of bleed intentionally, because the coupon sites want higher commissions, so they want to look like they're top of funnel. The influencers don't want to lose their commissions, so they're trying to also be kind of the end of journey, the coupons as well. So very interesting questions. We also had another question, kind of more in general, about everything that we're talking about today. So to all of you, how do we get all of this information to influencers? Like, we know in the industry, we talk about all of this, but how do we explain all of this, from attribution to the code tracking to these new higher options? How do we get this information out to the influencers in a way that they'll pay attention?
If anybody can answer this, you deserve a raise.
Is it through these sub networks? Is it through like the Maveleys? And where we're kind of saying to the middle, like, will you push out these webinars? Will you push out this information to them? Is it the brands that when the influencer comes to you, Annie, and says like, we want to work with you, and you say, yeah, we'll happily work with you, but here's a webinar you should go watch first
Yeah.
about influencer and affiliate?
I think one-on-one, there's a lot of simple ways we can all push out as an industry some of this education and some of the different efforts that, are available, the different attribution technologies that exist, and the different ways you can work with influencers and brands and how you can marry those things. I think when we're talking about pushing this out at scale, that's where you have a breakdown. Joey, you made an excellent point. Brands will not necessarily put influencer in a box, or sometimes they will, but depending on which brand you're working with and how they consider that as a channel, there's a lot of variations in how they view metrics, expectations, overall budget allocation, and what technologies they want to invest in or utilize for that, future budget and overall measurement, I would say, of their performance, right? So at scale, I don't know what the answer is to say, hey, the world of content creators, this is how this all breaks down. I think there's always going to be nuanced, and there's always going to be misconceptions on what influencers think they can get and what they expect versus what a brand expects versus what a tracking software or a network or an agency might expect. I think that just is kind of a case by case piece, and things like this that can help push out that information.
Yeah.
Sounds like an interesting thing for the influencer and creator council to tackle.
Yeah.
Right. So we kind of alluded to earlier that there are some tools that you might recommend. So maybe tools that you're currently working with or that you're investigating working with to help with some of the stuff so it doesn't all have to be done manually. What are some of those tools that either you're using or that you're hearing about? I know you have some. I will say the one that has popped up for me the most in the last couple of weeks is inflection.ai. And that's that I've now heard it mentioned 3 different times in 3 different groups that I've been in. Do any of you currently work with them yet? So I do not, but they are a PMA member. And the way that it was explained to me is that they are able to generate landing pages for the influencers with really simple customizations, like with their brand and stuff on them. And it's a way to do it at scale. So as opposed to having to have your development team, your IT team on the retailer side, have to create all of these landing pages individually, that they're able to do something where they're doing it at scale. So Dustin or any of you out there from Inflection AI would like to weigh in the comments and tell us what you're doing and how you do it.
I got to meet one of the Inflection guys at ASW at the Everflow event, and he was literally sitting right next to me. So really, really cool option for people. I think more and more people are going to probably start taking note, and I wouldn't be surprised if this one really takes off in the next year.
Exactly. What are you using for the surveys?
Yeah, so we have a third-party partner that we recommend to people that, you know, if they're in a situation where they don't have a dev team that can really build this or scale it in any reasonable length of time, or they don't have anybody at all. So we use Fairing, Fairing, Fairing.co, and it is a very affordable option. It is very quick, very similar to Inflection, where it can be done very quickly, especially if you're already on Shopify. So, I'm definitely not an expert in how they're set up, but we have brands that are working with them and getting up and running very, very quickly. And I highly encourage you to go check them out. You can also ping me if you want a little bit more information, or I'm happy to make a connection for you. But we love them, and they have a dashboard that really allows you really great insights into what's happening through that survey. A couple benefits that I wanted to kind of share. With those insights, you're really not relying anymore on incomplete or modeled out data. It's giving you a much quicker picture. It definitely goes beyond the last click. It's fast, as I mentioned, very easy to implement, and it's data that you can use. So, maybe you don't even have an influencer program right now, and maybe that's down the road, but you want to just know what's happening now. Where is all that organic traffic coming from? You may have channels that are just being completely underreported. So really, really cool insights there. And it's definitely more cost effective in the long run, in my opinion, than kind of do it yourself attribution, because it can take you months before you can get in that queue, and you're just missing out on the opportunity to be testing with more influencers and other partnerships if you're waiting months down the road. So you can get this spun up very quickly, and you can actually, there's all kinds of features that I can't even get into on this call, but Fairing.co.
And I want to throw some credit out too. I think going back to earlier in the discussion, talking about coupon tracking or attribution settings, last click being still the standard across the industry for most of the programs that we look at. There's been technology that has existed for years. It's not new to all of us on this call or those that are in this channel, but pretty much every major affiliate network, so the AWINs, the CJs, the PartnerEyes, a lot of them have different variations of attribution settings and way that you can credit different affiliate partners along that funnel or that click path. So to go back to, coupon code tracking, a lot of these networks have specific settings and technologies for you to offer that and track that through the platform. Because one area I still find to be a huge educational gap with brands and influencers when they're joining an affiliate-based program is that they just assume the credit's going to be given where credit is due, but they also have no idea what kind of nuanced technology already exists within their program, within the technology that they're already using, where you can go back and kind of see that click stream. You can credit accordingly. You can ignore that last click, last minute entry, maybe from a bottom funnel partner, and give that credit back to a previous affiliate in that click stream. So there are technologies out there that tackle that problem that, I think we've gotten some slack over in the past few months with the last click attribution as a main metric on performance, but the tech's already there. So I think if you're early in that path and you can't go and drum up, a full influencer program, and you're not interested in custom landing pages, start with your actual technology you have in place and see what you're not utilizing that you probably have access to and just don't know.
And if you don't know what you don't know, find the PMA white paper on attribution. And not only does it explain all of it, it says which ones the different networks do. So if you're trying to figure out if you're going to go with link connector, if you're going to go with partnerize, like who you're going to go with, figure out which attribution you want, look at our handy dandy little chart that we have in there from them, and then you'll be able to figure out which ones do the things that you want them to do. So we've talked about the pitfalls. We've talked about the advantages of different things. One last kind of follow-up question from the group, overarching. Given all of this, are we going to see more or less overlap between influencer and affiliate in the coming year? Anyone want to look into a crystal ball or something?
I think this channel is growing, marketing's growing, brands are growing, overlap is growing between influencer, coupon, content. It's fuzzy. Consumers are messy. There is no one clear path. I mean, even when you see the surveys, I don't always remember where I heard something because I've heard of it so many times or I've seen it, So it's just going to get murkier, but we do our best to make sure that we get the performance out that we need to for our brands that they are expecting.
I 100% agree with this. I've seen just in general, for a long time, we've had some staples that have dominated kind of that creator affiliate overlap. And now, I've seen ShopMy kind of organically start to grow as a platform where creators are going on their own and finding brand connections and doing that. And while we've spent a lot of time kind of talking about this from a more controlled and direct creator brand type partnership, I think we didn't necessarily touch on some other amazing companies, such as, there's Locker and just so many other emerging and small brands that have the creator in mind on how they can curate their own lists and how they can grow their own following and creating their own mini blogs and monetizing themselves as small stores, where we're just now kind of the filler in their own little retail media network. And so I think, I would be remiss to kind of forget that entire aspect of these creators making themselves, their own little shopping mall. So I do feel like with the innovation that's also being put not only into our stance on creators, but also the creators themselves, and using our affiliate model and the networks that we already use, I do see continued overlap and innovation in that stance as well.
To build on that, Joy, we didn't talk a lot about the influencer platforms where you can run your own campaigns or where influencers can just simply grab the links to brands that they already know and love. Yeah. And again, keeping transparency with the brand teams, you can't control consumers. If they love your brand, they're going to write about it. They're going to use it the way they use it in their life, not the way you tell them to use it. Let them go. Just let them keep writing about you and getting your name out there. It's not costing you anything but a commission if there's a sale. And then the campaigns give you a little bit more control on who you're using and the different influencer networks that can tie to the affiliate networks to track. Our are growing.
Well, thank you all so much. We're up at the end of our time. I knew this was going to end up being a terrific discussion because you all are a fantastic industry advancement council. So thank you all so much for sharing all of your great information today. For those of you who have been following along on LinkedIn, feel free to keep asking your questions out there. I'll have the panelists all go in and check out the LinkedIn page at the end of this just so that they can finish connecting with all of you and answering any other questions that they didn't get to. So thank you all so much. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you,
Bye,
Tricia.
everybody.
Thank you.